So welcome to this session on the International HPV Awareness Day campaign. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Joel Palefsky. I'm from the University of California, San Francisco, a proud member of IPVS. And it's my great pleasure to host this session along with my co-host, the esteemed Marcia Cross, who is just an amazing lady and so very generous, and we are so very grateful to have you with us. It's truly an honor to have you here. So, wow. That was one of our 1-minute videos. There are several of them, which we hope you'll see. Before we actually get into the nitty-gritty, again, I did want to introduce Marcia a little bit more. Marcia is an Emmy-nominated actress and very well known for her work on television, including this show, the little show called Desperate Housewives. Some of you may have known it. Anyway, we don't often have the opportunity to interact with non-nerds like us.
I love nerds.
and you and Lillian and Tamika and all the others have really give us great energy to do what we do, and we're very, very grateful. Again, thank you. So you've seen one of the videos. That's just one of many products that we have created for this campaign, which we'll describe in a little bit more detail. But I have to tell you that from my point of view, the main agenda is to excite you about the campaign and get you guys to play an active role in it. We have, over the years, been growing a lot and saying that we want to have more IPVS member participation, and we're reaching a point in the evolution of the campaign where we think that we can make really good use of that, particularly through the country ambassador program, but not necessarily only that way. And so you'll see at the end there's some information to contact us if you're interested in participating. So what we want to do today is introduce to you again the campaign more formally, let you know some of the things that we're doing, why we do it, and how we do it, and hopefully we'll have some time for questions at the end. So Marcia is going to tell us why we do what we do.
Hello. It's very hard not to respond to that introduction because you know he's such a renowned doctor and what he's done in this field. So, yes, thank you, Joel. I'm glad you're impressed by me. All right. So we are trying to increase public awareness about HPV throughout the world, raise the global level of understanding about HPV, stimulate conversation about HPV to reduce stigma, inspire people to take action to prevent HPV-related cancers. And how it works, it's a local, global but local implementation. I'll read it through, but I think you probably get the gist. IPVS selects a theme, creates materials, coordinates the annual campaign, and ensures that HPV receives attention on social media. The global network of operating partners are the driving force of the campaign, using the campaign materials to communicate effectively in the context of their communities. Official campaign partners can tailor messages and co-brand materials, adding their own logo and QR codes, which is brilliant and very effective, I think. That's not on the slide, but I believe that. And then this is an example. Is that you, Joel? The toolkit.
So this is where we currently have more than 130 partners around the world. Let me explain the structure of the campaign. Essentially, what we do on March 4th, which is International HPV Awareness Day, is create a series of very short but hopefully attention-grabbing messages to get people, not detailed information, but to grab their attention enough that they will want to go to the web links, to the QR codes, etc., to get the more detailed information that we really want people to have. So one key link is to askabouthpv.org, which is our IPVS website, which when they go to, they'll have demographic-specific information. So there'll be information targeted towards young people. There'll be information targeted towards older individuals, women, men, etc. And as you can imagine, the emphasis in this information is not only to talk about HPV, but also provide information that enables them to take action to prevent HPV-related cancers. So the younger FAQ sections will be more about vaccination. The older ones will be a little bit more about screening. So that's all great, but if we're trying to run a global campaign where we want to talk about HPV, obviously we need to do that in different ways, depending on where you are around the world. We cannot give quite the same set of information to somebody in the United States as into somebody in South Africa, for example. So the way that we do this is by partnering with people on the ground in various locations around the world and with different interests in HPV cancer prevention. So at this point, we have over 130 partners. It's a mixture of NGOs, it's various kinds of nonprofits, academic institutions, societies that are devoted to specific diseases. It's really a very wide range, and the intent is to provide tools to them that they can use and customize to fit local needs. So they're designed to be easily manipulated by people who know how to change computer graphics, etc., to change the images, change some of the text, put it into local languages. So that's just one role of the partners in this messaging campaign. Another one, depending on their interests, is to actually organize events that are occurring on March 4th. For example, we have in some parts of the world classes that are set up. They may be outside under tents where healthcare providers provide information to local community members. There are other events where people have organized classes for medical students. All kinds of information provided to all kinds of people in different ways. We put up big posters in different locations, and as you'll see later, we've had some very high-profile messaging in some of the world's most famous places. The other very important part of this, of course, is to make sure that as many people as possible are able to access the materials. One of the content focuses, foci, of the campaign is to talk about HPV itself. And why do we want to talk about HPV? We can talk about the various cancers, and there are many excellent organizations that are organized around specific cancers. But we wanted to do something a little different, and that was to talk about those and how to prevent them, of course, but also to talk about HPV itself. That carries, as you'll see a little bit later, some challenges, but also some very great benefits. And one of those is something we talked about at our session earlier today on stigma, because as you know, HPV does affect everyone, and we think that by making that clear to people, that when somebody gets HPV, it's not through any fault of their own, and that we're all in this together, and we want everybody to help everybody. So we think that by talking about HPV, we can not only reduce the stigma, but ease the conversation and help people get some of the care that they need. So for example, in some parts of the world, some women experience resistance from their male partners to get proper screening or vaccination for a number of reasons. And our hope is that by talking about HPV and making it relevant to men, that they'll not only understand that they're at risk for some HPV-related diseases, but also how they can help their women partners get the care that they need. So there's all kinds of, I think, good things that can come out of talking about HPV. So our partners are very essential in this process. We hope to get even more over time. In addition to sharing materials with them, we have this great thing called the HPV Hub, which is an online space for all of our partners to communicate with each other and with us, but also to communicate with each other primarily in sharing materials and sharing ideas. And we've had some great meetings online with different partners presenting their activities around the campaign and their ideas and sharing some of their experiences with that. So I think everybody has found those to be very beneficial. So Marcia is now going to tell us about the work that she's done as the co-founder, along with Lillian Krapell, of one of our very valuable partners, the HPV Cancer Alliance.
So every year, 37,300 people are diagnosed with an HPV-associated cancer. 6,130 of those people die from an HPV-associated cancer in the United States, which is why I'm here, because I don't want to have that happen anymore. 45.5% youth are unvaccinated against HPV in the United States. So I was one of the lucky ones on the 37,300 because my gynecologist was old school, did a digital rectal exam, and caught my cancer. But that's not always the case. Most of the women I talk to are told they have a hemorrhoid and they go away, and then they try to make another appointment, and then their insurance company only covers so much, and by the time they get in again, what could have been like an easily curable stage 1 or 2 cancer is now stage 3, and I'm always sick. Anyway, so luckily for me, an amazing woman contacted me and told me that she had anal cancer at the same time I did. Wow, isn't that fabulous? Well, it was, because she is a tour de force. I mean, more energy and life than anybody I've ever met, and she's sitting in the front row in like that neon yellow-green, which is representative of who she is. And together with Stan Lifton, we started the HPV Cancers Alliance, and we are trying to educate the public, providers. We're trying to hit it from all angles right now, because we find on the doctor's side there's a lack of education. It's kind of like nobody kind of wants that department, and if they do, they're not really hip to what's going on. So we want to educate them. We want to have men and women know what the symptoms are of these different cancers. My husband had throat cancer. And it wasn't until he said to me, I have a lump on my throat. And I'm like, how long have you had that? Men. I said, go to the doctor. Well, that was throat cancer. So, I really didn't know anything about HPV. Never heard of it. It was not the thing, in my generation, it was herpes, right? That's what you were embarrassed about. Herpes, oh my God. So I'm so lucky because I have no stigma with the HPV because I've never heard of it. So I got nothing on it. And I learned to fall in love with my anus because I'm like, oh my God, thank God it works and it's all good, because that's a life changer, right? So I feel the reason I'm doing what I'm doing and getting too much credit from someone like Joel is because what I care about are the people that I talk to, and I'm specifically right now thinking about a woman, oh, I don't want to cry, younger than me, not that hard to be, with 3 beautiful boys, and she just passed away. And that just makes me crazy, because we're not talking pancreatic cancer, which right now is sort of not curable unless it's a miracle or a glioblastoma or something. This is something preventable. These people don't need to die, men and women. And so this is really important to me. And when I looked at that map, and now I'm going off the top, and I see, all around the world, I almost can't even think about it, because my heart breaks, because I'm thinking, if it's hard in the United States, how are we going to get to these, countries where there's so much stigma, or there's no medical care, or, they just don't even know, like I didn't know. So it feels to me that we have a lot of work to do, and thank God there's an international society here, and I'm thrilled that you're in this room. Anyway, I think I talked about our mission, and we're doing that by, different events, making ourselves known. Lillian's always organizing something, and I show up. And I think we're making some headway. Yesterday we were on Capitol Hill, and we're looking for a Republican co-sponsor of a bill called the HPV Prevention Act, something like that. And, we need a Republican sponsor, and I think, it was really wonderful, because in spite of my differences in terms of maybe guns, I was thrilled to meet Republicans who, have the same level of love and care for other humans as I do, and I'm hoping that one or two of them will co-sponsor that bill and help us save some more lives. That was funny, because it seemed like I was waiting for applause, but I was just waiting for the next slide. But bless you for clapping.
We need to have an applause sign behind.
I wasn't looking for it. Okay, so why do we become an IHAD campaign partner? And as I said, it's because we share the same objectives: preventing HPV cancers. We're stronger together. We are provided with new and dynamic campaign materials. We're part of a global network. This is a virus. It doesn't stick to just one country. We are connected with the global authority on HPV.
So, how have we been doing? So this campaign just completed its 5th iteration. The campaign started very small, and it's still small in terms of financial resources, but we have a lot of people working on the campaign very, very hard. I think you've seen pictures of the various campaign members. I'm not going to name them all right now, but they're really dedicated. We've been meeting mostly every week. For me, I know Marcia's going to understand what I'm about to say. It's a big sacrifice for those of us to have to get up at terrible hours early in the morning, particularly those of us in the West Coast. But we have some really, really fantastic people from various regions, and we're very, very lucky to have some fantastic help from Kenneth in the form of Anita Wiseman. Where's Anita? Thank you. And Chris Amsinger, who's not here at this meeting, and Coralie always somehow ends up helping an awful lot. So thank you very much, Coralie. So with this small group of people and a relatively small amount of funding, quite honestly, I suspect that what we spend for a year for this campaign is what one big pharma commercial selling Ozempic spends on for one night on cable television. I think we've done some pretty amazing things, but we still have a very long way to go. Our target really is everybody. I mean that quite literally. In my fantasy world, in 10 years from now, or however long it takes, we're going to have people in LA getting the same message or some iteration of it at the same time as somebody working in a field somewhere in South America or Africa or wherever the case may be. The numbers are shown on this slide for this last year, and I'm not going to go over them. There's a lot of little detail there, except to say that our reach, as measured through various social media, has increased several hundredfold just in the last year. We estimate right now that through those various media, and our precision is getting better, that we, in the last campaign, reached almost 300 million people. And we have several 100,000 new visitors to our website, and lots and lots of views. But this is only a small picture, a snapshot of what we actually did, because this does not reflect the many in-person activities that our partners helped to organize, the dances, the TikTok videos, the Zumbas, all kinds of things. Also, Yulin Chow shared with me some information that they were very active in China this year, and we're just digesting the report, but they were active in 14 different Chinese cities as well, so there's millions more reached through some of our partners in China. So I think it sounds impressive, and I think it is impressive, but we can still do much, much better. And some of that relates to limitations in funding, because we have two big goals coming up for the next few years. One is to expand our reach by translating our materials into more languages. For instance, we're in Hindi, but clearly if we want to reach more people in India, we want to be able to translate into more local languages, and all of that takes resources. And then the other big change in the campaign is that we're going to be moving from a very precision focus on March 4th to continued emphasis on March 4th, but year-round activities to complement that. And that, of course, will also take a lot of additional resources. Anyway, I hope you'll take the time to look at this. The report, I think, is posted on the website. You can see how we've been doing in the last year, at least as of now. That report will be updated as we continue to gather more information. So I mentioned to you that we have had some exposure in some fairly prominent places. Here's an example in Brazil of one of the tallest buildings in Sao Paulo. We have the Zumba dancing in Singapore. On the top panel, there's an interview on television in Italy with a prominent Italian scientist. We have, in Canada, we had billboards on the street. It really is popping up everywhere. In Japan last year, we actually had one of our 30-second videos showing in the equivalent, I don't know what you'd call it, you know, in Times Square they have a big billboard that shows animations. They have something like that in the Shibuya crossing in Tokyo. It's like one of the most populated crossings in the world as far as pedestrian foot traffic, and people were hopefully not getting hit by cars as they were walking by looking at our video trying to prevent HPV cancers. But it was an amazing thing to see. And then this is a little bit of a heat map showing where many of the hits to our website came from. And one of the top countries, which made me very, very happy, actually was India, in terms of the number of hits. So we're clearly reaching populations in different parts of the world. The second most common was in Nigeria, another very encouraging thing. And then the third one was in Brazil. So I think we are making inroads into a truly global audience. And again, I think with more resources, we can do even more. One of the amazing things that happen, there are some things that you just cannot buy or plan for. And as it happens, on March 4th and the day before, President Macron of France talked about HPV vaccination at a school. The story was picked up and spread on HPV Awareness Day and was amplified in the media. We call that the Macron effect. We do think, he didn't specifically mention HPV Awareness Day, but we think this was arranged to be in conjunction with it. So, wow, we've got the President of France talking about HPV now. So I think that is huge, or as my brother-in-law from Newfoundland would say, it's huge. I think we'll see how that translates into any kind of improved vaccine uptake and screening in France, but I think it's all for the good. And when somebody as prominent as Macron spends precious time talking about our precious issues, that says a lot.
Joel, I have to interject here. You were very lucky because at that point he was very popular.
Yeah.
And right now they're not very happy with him because I was just in Paris, so you lucked out.
Right.
Got in the nick of time.
This was prior to all the pension stuff. So you're absolutely right. We could have done damage to our campaign if
exactly.
Like I said, we don't plan these things, so it could go either way. The question is, why are awareness campaigns an important part of preventing HPV-related cancers?
So I'm going to read some quotes. This is from the World Health Organization. It's a quote by someone. Why would a young girl get a vaccine against an infection she has never heard of? And why would parents allow their children to be vaccinated against HPV if most have never heard about the virus and don't understand the connection with cancer? Let's build awareness as a key step to improve the uptake of HPV vaccines. That's from the World Health Organization, Paul, I don't know how you say his name, Bloem? And then from Margaret Stanley, the professor of from University of Cambridge. She's, sorry, Margaret. She says, it comes down to awareness. HPV causes cancer, and not just cervical cancer, but a range of cancers in both men and women. It is not a woman's cancer. It infects all genders, a true equal opportunities virus, and a true nonpartisan virus as well, as we said a lot yesterday. The vaccines really work. They prevent infection and stop the transmission of virus between partners. This is the message, and HPV awareness campaigns reinforce this message.
We're going to hear from a really great person next.
What did I say? As an HPV cancer thriver, I know firsthand that early detection of HPV and the cancers it can cause may mean the difference between life or death. We must work together to get patients into the room. We must work together to improve worldwide access to information, vaccines, and testing. We must work together to improve screening guidelines for all HPV-associated cancers. We must work together to advance research and treatment options around the globe. The only way we're going to win the fight against HPV is if we fight together. Not looking for applause. The pause.
So what are the challenges? I alluded to some of these a little bit a few minutes ago, and here are just some of them. One is the size. So I think it's safe to say that when we're targeting everybody on the planet, that's a little ambitious. But my mother always used to say, and this is one of the important things I learned from her, she used to say, if you don't ask, you don't get. So if you don't aim for that, it's never going to happen. I don't know if we're ever going to get there, but everybody is important, and I think we need to aim to reach everybody with this important information. So naturally, trying to target a campaign to such a wide range of people, demographics, cultural contexts is a big, big challenge. Then there's the one that I was kind of hinting at about talking about HPV. I gave the reasons why I think talking about HPV has great value, but there are challenges that come with that, because when you're talking about HPV, although we don't specifically talk about sex because it's not the most relevant piece of information that we want people to have at the beginning, some people immediately go there and think that we have to talk about how HPV is acquired or spread. And of course, we do want people to have that information, but that's not really the focus of the campaign. The focus of the campaign is to just make people aware that they're at high risk, and a lot of people get it. And yes, there are some things that can be done to prevent it, the sexual spread, but the sex sometimes gets in the way, as it often does. And that's because in some countries, for instance, when you talk about something that has even a whiff of sex, then it kind of shuts down doors. So we've been very careful in our messaging to provide information that we think is medically relevant about sex, but not at the first stage, but at the stage where people can go to when they want further information. We've had interesting feedback from some countries that we never anticipated. For example, with our new campaign with the One Less Worry, I think it's quite attractive from a point of view of the different colors. But one country said they weren't going to show it because they thought that the pink at the bottom was too gay. So, we have a lot of work to do. In doing all this, we do try, of course, as much as we can to take into account cultural sensitivities. And since we are limited in our own worldviews, we largely rely on our partners on the ground to help us with that. So those local partners, our local champions, really are key. And with the initiation of the ambassador program, the country ambassador program, we're hoping that those who are newly selected will consider helping to coordinate campaign activities on the ground in your country as one of the things that you do. I know it's a big ask because you have a lot of things to do already, but we think that you are ideally situated to help us because you're one of us and you understand the needs of local people much better than we do. You are also, of course, encouraged to recruit to the cause as many local colleagues as you see fit. You don't have to do this by yourself, but just having a single kernel in one place does allow this to grow like a snowball. So we do really hope that you will join the activity. Another thing that we struggle with a lot is that we're promoting, of course, vaccination and screening very heavily, but sometimes that messaging is going to places where they can't actually act on the information that we want them to have. So it's kind of very unfortunate, to say the least, that we are encouraging vaccination in some places where somebody may say, oh, I really need a vaccine, and then they realize that they can't actually get it for any number of reasons. And we've struggled a lot with how to deal with that. And I think we came to the conclusion that we're still better off to talk about it, that people should know what they deserve, in the hopes that that might help to encourage more interaction with local public health authorities, et cetera, to demand what it is they deserve. So we're usually careful to say this or that may not be available in all areas, but we still think in the balance it's better that people have the information and that they know what they could potentially have and work towards getting that. Another challenge, of course, is particularly when you're talking about vaccination, there's always the risk of getting the attention of anti-vaxxers and other people who have other malign agendas. And we've been pretty fortunate so far with the campaign as far as that's concerned. We have not had a lot of pushback from those elements. Maybe they haven't, maybe we haven't gotten big enough to grab their attention. But for now, we're just watching very carefully to make sure that people who are commenting on the campaign are not spreading misinformation. And then I've already alluded to the fact that we are limited by whatever funding we can get. We could use 10 times more funds than we currently have quite easily, but we are also a part of this society, and we want to make sure that we are being responsible with society funds, just like every other society activity. And so we pay a lot of attention to not trying to exceed what we're actually capable of doing. So we're going to play for you just while you're leaving. I'm going to ask Aviva not to start it until we've had time for at least a few questions. We will have a few minutes, but as you're leaving, you're going to hear that jingle that you heard at the opening ceremony. This was created by two people from Singapore, very talented people, and honestly, I found it a little bit annoying because after I heard it, I could not get the damn thing out of my head. Also, I realized that I can't dance. Marcia, did you have anything you wanted to add before we open the session up for questions?
No, except that I got very concerned about Iran and Afghanistan as you were talking.
About what?
Iran and Afghanistan, about the women there in particular. Just saying. How do we get there?
Yes, it's
down the road.
Okay, so like I said, we have a few minutes for questions, and I'd be very happy to take some. And please tell us whether you're asking Marcia or myself or both.
Hi, Amy Kramer, U.S. National Cancer Institute, and I am definitely asking Marcia. So you're speaking to a room full of researchers, and we look at the numbers.
Excuse me, Amy, 1 second. Could we get the lights up at this point so we can see each other?
So you can see anything?
Maybe not. Why don't you go ahead?
So we talk, many of us are not clinicians. We talk numbers all day long. This is our passion. This, we live and breathe this. What more can we do? What do you want us to do? How can we partner with you more? Those are my questions. How can we get our message out better?
As researchers, well, I don't think that's your job.
Oh, okay.
I think your job is to do what you're doing and let someone like me do the song and dance, because what you're doing is what is the most valuable thing, right? And so, probably hearing from me about the people's lives you're touching, maybe that's my job, to let all of you know that what you do, and I'm sure you know this, but I look at them and I see them, and that, for me, when I go, oh gosh, I don't want to put my high heels on, I go, yeah, well, she's not here. You know what I mean? So maybe just bringing that to life for you, that there are real people that are calling and that are, that need you. I don't know if there's a better answer, but that's, I feel like you're the nerds, right?
Love it.
And that's like, I always say to Lillian, like when we're doing something like yesterday in the offices, is like everybody has something to bring, and you just know your value, because I don't have a business head. Other men and the couple guys in the room were like all business minded, and Lillian and I are work in the room. Like everybody does something. It's it's a total effort. So I'm sure you're just got to keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you for participating in our society today. It means a lot to us. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Kia ora, I'm Francesca speaking, I guess, on behalf of our New Zealand delegation, and I'm hoping I might have an answer for you, because I think, I'm not disagreeing with you, not at all, but what I think is we don't do enough of talking about research as activism. We're doing the research that hopefully is lending itself to this, and sometimes it's kind of using that language, and we're actually activists, but we don't necessarily have the tools, and we certainly don't want to waste our time doing it. But I think, little old New Zealand, it's on the bottom right. Most of the time it falls off the map. It's covered by a logo, but we're just 5 million people, and I think what we're trying to find is different exciting ways to tell that message. If we start talking to HPV, we know it's going to be health. We know what we're talking to in cancers, but want to tell a different story. And if I can put a pitch in for something.
Go for it.
We had a New Zealand, I know you're going to be thinking about sheep, and you're right. So we had an opportunity. HPV self-testing is not standard care, unlike what some people are saying it is. It's coming to us. We fought for it, hopefully July this year. But we've been doing research to bring HPV testing to communities, to rural communities, to Māori communities, to improve outcomes. And we used point of care, so thank you, Safid, I know you're there. And we were asked to join what's called a share-a-thon. And this event was a fundraising event and it was to raise money for charity, and it happened to be a gynecological cancer, but they were like, to be what's called a rousey, to be that person that's involved in the shearing, to collect the wool. These workers do not have good access to any care, let alone healthcare, let alone HPV testing or screening. And we were asked to bring point of care and a colposcopy bus to this community. And we thought that was cool enough, and then we got asked if a documentary team could come and film it. And we thought it was just going to be about the work we were doing. But what was brilliant was, and it's very sad, but they told the story of the people that were there. In rural New Zealand, they shorn 30,000 sheep in 36 hours. It's an amazing thing to watch, so I'll happily share the YouTube thing with anyone who wants to find me after. But the people that got spoken to were the families, they were the communities. They then ended up talking about why HPV was so relevant for them. And on the wall of one of the shearing sheds was the photo of a mama who was suffering cancer, and it turned the whole story around, and it pivoted, and it told a story in relation to community and families and not just research. And I think the more of us that can put our stories out there and give them to you, share them with each other, they're the stories we want to hear and their impact. So it was more of a comment, not a question. But
I'm going to go looking for some sheep right now. No, I'm joking, but I get the idea, and it's brilliant. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, kia ora.
Thank
That
you
story
so
was
much.
sheer brilliance.
Ba-dum-bum.
I guess mine's also a comment, and I was just going to add that I think in an era of so much misinformation, I think as scientists, we really need to work on demystifying what we do. And so maybe it's not getting out there and doing that, but figuring out how we can tell people about our science so that we're not these strange lab rats who are doing weird things that are a little bit suspicious, and we need to be a little bit worried about what they're doing, but really bringing sort of science to life and showing it how it impacts people. So I don't disagree with you, because I like to focus on my research, but I do think there is a place for all of us to do our part in sort of combating the misinformation and the anti-science movement that's also
I think
occurring.
what you're saying is brilliant, because you don't have the scientists speaking out. Like if someone could see you and you talk about vaccine, whatever, that is a totally different message than a pharmaceutical company saying, no, everything's great, or the government even, because, we have a lot of people who are, whatever. So you just came up with a brilliant idea. You guys should start your own little TikToks and, I mean, really, I actually think that's brilliant. Go for it. No, really, it's because our country, we have so many problems about trust. But if you're looking at the scientists talking, it's a completely different story. Because you're not raking in millions of dollars, right? I mean, you should be, but
I think we found, when you go out to communities, people say, no, you're not a scientist. Wait, you don't look like a scientist. And so, let's make the face of a scientist someone who can also kind of talk and be normal and get our research to be relevant to people's lives. So, thank you. Really appreciate that.
Now it's on you.
Well, I think we're going to have to end it here. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Please come to the General Assembly meeting. Thank you so much to Marcia.
Thank you, Joel.
And please help us with the campaign. I hope you're really proud of it. And maybe we can have the jingle as we go out.
Hey everybody, I got something important for me to share. It goes something like this. One less worry. One jab, one check. Four. One less worry. One jab, one check. Four. One less worry. Do you even know it? That HPV is more common than you think. It's asymptomatic, even worse when you don't know about it. But now you can have one less worry. HPV is no longer scary. For the man, you need to know about it. You can pretend it got nothing to do with it. For the woman, go for a check. As much as man going for a chat. I say one step closer, one at a time. One less worry. One jab, one check. Four. 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 One less worry. going for a jab. I say one step closer, one at a time, one last word. One jab, one check, for one last word. One jab, one check, for one last word. One jab, one check, for one last word. One jab, one check.